Welcome to Paley Front Row, part of the Paley at Home series presented by Citi.
Now, without any further ado, let's please welcome Amber Ruffin and Seth Meyers.
Look, I'm just saying. They're just, I don't know, I'm not saying I should sit closer. I'm just saying there might be like a confetti stunt later, and I want you to be.
It does matter for how they put the microphones on your shirts.
Yeah.
You guys, it matters.
It does matter.
It does matter. Well, thank you both for being here.
Yay.
And so first I want
I do want to give Amber a break. These are the tiniest name cards I've ever seen.
They're very little.
Yeah.
Mine's right there. I want to talk about how this beautiful partnership started. So Seth, you offered Amber a job on Late Night after she auditioned for SNL, I believe in 2014.
Yeah.
Tell me what your first impressions of her were then, and then I want to hear Amber's first
Well, I
impressions.
should stress it wasn't my first impression. I'd known Amber for years and years and years.
Okay.
We had both worked for an improv comedy theater in Amsterdam called Boom Chicago. Yeah, Boom Chicago. And we never overlapped, but I used to go back a lot, and I used to see Amber perform, and she had a wonderful reputation there. My wife actually claims that we saw her together, and my wife said you should hire her for SNL, so I get no credit in our household for hiring Amber. But then, yeah, she auditioned for SNL. She was super funny, and she did not get the job.
Not enough.
I mean, really funny, but just not. We've talked about it. You just couldn't get it over the finish line.
just Seth Meyers funny, not SNL funny.
Yeah, so then I called her, and I should also give credit to Mike Shoemaker, our producer, and he had watched the SNL auditions, and we were just, the timing was SNL was having these auditions at the same time we were putting together a staff, and it just worked out really well, because what she did in the audition, it became clear this is somebody who could write very well for themselves and was very winning and had a lot of charisma. And so it was a really fun call I got to make, which was calling Amber and ask her if she wanted to work for us.
Yay!
What did you do in the audition?
You did Sleepy Bruno Mars.
I did?
Yeah, remember you did like Bruno Mars, like falling asleep in your audition for SNL.
You know, I've been trying to remember what I did, and I never remembered that.
Yeah.
That's right. It was Sleepy Bruno Mars. I can't quite remember what it was.
Yeah.
I can't quite remember what it was, but it's some song where it's like. It was like that.
Bruno Mars has so much energy that
Yeah.
Sleepy Bruno Mars is a very funny idea.
He doesn't want to be asleep.
He doesn't want to be. He was
wants
fighting
to be dancing
it.
around.
He was fighting
He's
it. Yeah.
fighting it. But yeah.
Well, and what was your reaction to that call?
I got that call. Now look, I don't like telling the story because before Seth called, I was just a full-time Boom Chicago, Second City, all kinds of, just a full-time comedy writer and performer for 10 years. But then when Seth called, I was a nanny to a tiny baby. So I had just put the baby down for a nap and I was just sitting there. And Seth called and I said, I kept trying to get him off the phone because because I'm awkward. And I thought, what a weird call this is that he's calling me to say, I'm so sorry you didn't get it. That's what I thought the phone call was about. I thought the phone call was, I recommended you for SNL, but you didn't get it. I'm sorry, man, that's a bummer. That's what I thought the phone call was. So I kept being like, you didn't have to call. And so I think trying to be like, I have something to say. But yeah, then it turned out to be good.
And then the only bad side is you just left that baby there.
Yeah. Baby's still there.
He said, I'll be there if... He's big.
He's big.
Yeah, he grew up.
The child's 8 years old.
He's that kid who always like knocks on the glass and he's like points at you. He's always like,
Yeah.
So Amber, congratulations on season 3 of the Amber Ruffin Show. Yay! Just started. So the premiere was last week, but tell people what they can expect a little bit from this season.
Oh my gosh, you guys, do you like to laugh? No, the Amber Ruffin Show season 3, what we're doing is we have like big guests. We're gonna have just regular guests because we figured why not? So for every show, we're gonna have like a big regular guest that we'll announce, but then also we'll have a little surprise guest. And like the season 2's last episode was, the little surprise guest was El DeBarge. So the surprise guest every show is someone who I would kill you to meet. so like the season premiere episode, the surprise guest was Babyface.
There's a really funny thing in our, because I guess to some degree we sort of share a talent booking office and we have these big, it's everything you want it to be, these big dry erase calendar boards, and they write the guests. And Amber tapes on Friday, I tape Monday through Thursday. And sometimes I'll just glance up at the board and I'll think, that's a weird guest for my show. And then I realize, oh, that's Amber's show. Yeah. I'm like, what is...
You're like, I'll be sure. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Why not? Well, how does the workflow work? Because Amber, obviously, you still write on late night. And do you get custody of her on certain days? Like, how does this work?
I should say, Amber manages the workflow in a way that is truly incredible to us because we're obviously aware and supportive of her show. And if she ever said, I don't have the bandwidth right now for this week of late night because of my show, if that's the case, she has never once said it. And so we continue to lean on her on our show. Amber, one of the greatest things about having her on the staff is she has a real great ability to know what we need before we can ask her for it. So, for example, like an hour after the Oscars ended, she emailed, I've got something. And so it's really nice. Like, not all, we love all our writers equally, but not all of them, some of them need to be asked and prodded a bit and reminded, that they're salaried. But Amber is not that.
No.
Amber, when I talked to you, I believe it was last year, you said that you often just pitch, like you pitch a bunch of stuff to late night, and some of that stuff goes to late night, and then some of the stuff you take for yourself. Like, is that still sort of the process?
Yeah, every Sunday I sit down and I just write a million, fucking 4 sketches.
Which I should say, the exchange rate of that compared to our other writers is $1 million. So.
Every Sunday I write my 4 sketches. One of them becomes a Monday pitch. And then I ask late night if they want one, and then the rest we read for Ruffin Show. And sometimes I don't make it to my own dang show. It's because my writers are outstanding. So sometimes they do beat me. But and that's what I used to do before at late night. It's just that now I'm more confident. So then all the sketches get a chance to live. Whereas before I'd be like, I'll just only send in the really good one that I like the most. Now everybody gets all the garbage.
We all get to look at everything Amber does.
So obviously the last 2 years have been an interesting challenge for late night shows, and both of you spent many, many months shooting without an audience. And Seth, you brought back the audience, I believe, in October of last year. Yeah. I had read that you were like a little ambivalent about it. Can you tell us what the thought process was?
There was this really to find a silver lining during a pandemic is a tricky thing to do, but we started doing the show in an attic in my in-laws' house, and there was no audience, and the show, you kind of had to strip it down and build it back up. And without an audience to play to, we just fully leaned into what we thought was funniest. And we were also losing our fucking minds at the exact same time that our audience was, for the exact same reason. And so there was this real community to what we were going through. And then we came back in the studio, and then it was just doing it for the crew, and there was something old school about just hearing crew laughs. And we were worried that an audience would come back and we would lose the spirit that we had found over the course of that, at that point, 20 months. The really nice thing, and it was genuinely emotional when I walked out to the first time with the audience, was realizing in their reaction that they were the audience that had been with us for those 20 months. They hadn't been with us in person, but they were those people. And we found that we could sort of do the show that we'd been doing over the course of the pandemic, which takes sort of wild tangents and is at times, it's always about the news, but can be whimsical, can be hacky, can tell dumb jokes, can do half-baked impressions. And we kind of just managed to keep that, which was really fun.
And Amber, you welcomed your very first audience last summer, I believe. What was that adjustment like?
It was a little bit of a big one because we had started our show in the pandemic, so we didn't have an audience for a long time, and we got used to it. But also, when you say a joke and then no one's in there and no one laughs, it's fine because the people who are seeing it at home, they're really laughing. And so in my mind, people were friggin' falling out. And then when you start the show, that's not always the case, but it did make you greedy for, you can't hide it. You're greedy for laughs. Yeah. So you can, when there is no audience and there's nothing at stake, you get weird. But when you can see a full audience of people, you get greedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, your greedy comedy instincts kick in. You can't help it. It
was funny how people would say, is it so hard doing comedy without the laughs? And the one hearing I always wanted to say is hearing a laugh, I can remember what that's like. It's so nice knowing nothing's gonna bomb, Because one thing bombs on a night that's hot, that's the one you take home with you. Yeah. So, but the other, I really want to give credit, it was one thing for me to have done a show for 6 years and then all of a sudden have to do without an audience. The fact that Amber started a show without the benefit of an audience in real time giving her that feedback, was the level of difficulty on that was so high and so genuinely impressive.
Thank you, Mommy.
So we need to talk about some signature segments. Mm-hmm. So first off, Seth, tell us a little bit about the origins of A Closer Look and sort of what your goals were when you started it and if they've evolved at all.
It was really a bit of a trip. When we started the show, we never thought, and I think in 2014, the conventional wisdom wasn't long-form pieces about politics are what people want to watch the next day online. It seemed like at the time people wanted to see shorter things, maybe more celebrity-based, maybe more song and dancey, and so we were bad at all those things, and we sort of stumbled into it. I wrote one. I think the first one was about the Greek debt crisis, and the idea was maybe we'll do one a month, and then it was we'll do one a week, and it was amazing how I'd go out, and that was always the thing people said, I really like that thing you did. And then Sal Gentile, who was a producer at the time, I would bring him in because he had a cable news background, and we would talk about him before I wrote him, and then I realized he would be better at writing them, and so we promoted him to a writer. And the thing that bums me out the most about A Closer Look is I think the fourth one we didn't originally call him A Closer Look. My dad said, you should give it a name, something like A Closer Look. And he was like, that way it'll become a franchise. I'm like, it's not gonna be a franchise, and now it's a fucking franchise. And if you think Larry Myers doesn't remind me of that every time I think.
Does he get a cut?
He doesn't get a cut, but he takes a cut. Yeah.
And Amber, you have a segment on your show called How Did We Get Here?
Yay!
Which takes a deep dive into topics of Black history in a way that is really informative, but also very, very funny. Tell us a little bit about how that developed.
We didn't think we were going to be doing any Closer Look type of stuff at all. But one of our writers, Shantira, wrote a segment about who knows what at this point, because it's too long ago, that was like, how did we get to the point where insert crazy racist thing? And then the next time someone wrote a serious bit like that, they said, this is like a how did we get here? And then it was over. And then we knew we liked it. And then, at the same time, I follow this guy named Michael Harriot on Twitter, and he's just a professor who has all of these black facts about history that you did not know. Like he wrote the bit, how do we get here, about drowned towns. Mm-hmm. And I knew that there were drowned towns, but I didn't know that there were so many, and like how it happened and how quickly, and yeah. So like he's become a real big resource, and I want to be like comedy daddy, so I do.
The really funny thing you said that's true, closer look, is you don't think you're going to do them, and then you start doing them because they work. And Amber and I, we were staffed up about 6 months before the first episode of Late Night, and it's so funny how many things we came up with, none of which worked. And ultimately, the thing about these shows is you only can learn how to do them by doing them.
Yeah.
There's no pregame. You can't sit around and watch old Lettermans and say, I got it, we're gonna be good. You just gotta do it.
Well, Seth, I also have to talk to you about Surprise Inspection.
Okay.
Where you read rejected monologue jokes and critique them and then show a picture of the writer who wrote them. First of all, do your writers like you?
I think they do. By the way, the idea that these writers don't love it when I put their picture on TV. The fact, I'd be like, this is the hackiest joke you're ever gonna hear. Ian wrote it. Ian's at home going, yeah. All right, look who's on TV. The context matters not.
No.
But how did that, what was the inspiration? Did you just see
It was not, it was, so Alex Bays is our head writer. He is, for my money, the greatest living joke writer in America. He was the head writer at Weekend Update when I was there. He writes the most succinctly worded, tightest jokes you can imagine. And they're very rarely a monologue where he doesn't have half of them. So his output is insane. And he also came from a military family, and he's just so disciplined, and I think he cannot believe some of the jokes that his writing staff turns in. So he came to me and said, I've been pulling the most embarrassing jokes, and I want to do Surprise Inspection. And so we didn't tell our writers, and it's so much fun, because the other thing is you read them. Look, everything works better if you preface it by saying, these jokes stink.
Yeah.
And so then you read them, they stink. The audience is like, oh, and then you talk about why they stink and what their thought process was. And it's a real adventure because so much of it is unscripted. It's basically just hear bad jokes and then I talk about the bad jokes. And the greatest thing about it is, and this was something we built during the pandemic, not just with our writing staff, but with our crew, is we sort of built a cinematic universe. People got to know who the writers are.
Yeah.
We have a writer named Mike Scollins, who, with a great consistency, writes the most offensive jokes on our show. And so now when you read the YouTube comments, the amount that people say, I knew that was Scollins before he said it, it makes me really happy.
Well, Amber, as a writer on Late Night, how do you feel about this segment, and have any of your jokes ever been busted?
Oh, I almost never write monologue jokes. Monologue is a skill I'd like to leave alone.
I also don't have. It is a real different thing. And even for years of reading monologue style jokes, both at Update and here, that is
it's a
real
different
specific
brain.
skill.
Yeah. You're not going to find a lot of monologue writers who are also performers. I think that's true.
Yeah.
But I was there when they did it the first time, and I didn't know y'all were going to do it, and I was crying laughing. If you know these guys, you know Karen wrote that joke, you friggin' idiot. You know Scollins wrote that joke. It is the best, but also like that Bays would get to publicly burn them is so beautiful because you know he wants to do it.
My favorite joke that Bays wrote for that is in the intro where it said, I basically say, and because Our writers don't know we're doing this, and because many of them don't watch the show, they'll never know. A perfectly worded face joke.
Yeah.
Amber, you contribute several recurring segments to late night, including jokes Seth can't tell, Amber says what, Amber's moment of rage, recaps of events like the Oscars, and is this racist? Is there a difference between, what differentiates these segments from ones that would be on your show, and do you have a favorite that you do?
Do I have a favorite late night bit that I do? Here comes the answer. Yes. I guess it would be, you know what I love? Friggin' point counterpoint.
Oh yeah, with Allie.
Point counterpoint with Allie is Seth, Allie, and me, and Seth goes, okay, now we're gonna go through the topics. All right, the war in the Ukraine, and then Allie goes, it's a travesty, blah, blah, blah. And I go, you know what's a travesty? That there aren't enough marshmallows in Lucky Charms. And it's that, and it is that. I think that's my favorite. Because
what was your rapper character we used to do back?
Lil Doof.
Lil Doof. I miss Lil Doof.
Lil Doof inspired by Kanye West. And now it's just like beyond parody. And I'm just like, you beat me.
When we started the show, I feel like our original plan with the writers is we would have them do a lot of characters.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite, we just didn't find the same traction with it that I thought we would. And so then what happened was there was a second wave where the writers started playing versions of themselves, or in Amber's case, very often just herself. And that became, I think that was the nicest thing, is people wanted to know who the writing staff was, as opposed to watching them try to do SNL-style sketches.
But they don't care. Seth don't care. He just said that, but he's wrong. No. At late night, the funniest thing wins. It doesn't. Yeah. It's usually it's the fastest, the tightest thing you can write. But if you can take a little weird journey as a mermaid, they'll allow it.
We have this really creative writer named Ben Warheit, who's incredibly unique, and he wrote a sketch that I really loved that we did, where the McRib was back.
No, I don't like it.
But the setup and I said, I will do your sketch, but I have to explain it by saying, every year the McRib comes back, and every year every writer on every comedy show thinks they have a fresh take on a thing that's been happening for 30 years. And then Ben came out, and he basically just sat on a stool as the son of the McRib, being like, oh, you're back? And it was a really well-acted monologue. And that sort of thing. When something can come across and just feel novel, which is hard, because late night TV, it has been a format for a long time. Doing something that feels new is oftentimes one of the most challenging things you're up against.
The thing about Ben is he's really acting. He's like
he's
really doing it. It makes it 40 times as hilarious. But also, Ben can play the piano. He does a bit now where it's like,
the story, there was a story, I don't know if you guys read that there's going to be a Billy Joel biopic, but they don't have the rights to his name or likeness or songs. That's a real story.
That's real.
Like the Celine one.
And so then Ben was like...
Ben plays Bobby Jake.
Seth's gonna just let him audition on the show. And he's propped up as Billy Joel. And he's really playing the piano, and he just does a medley of Billy Joel songs where a couple words are off.
Yeah. It's like, sing me a song, you're the keyboard guy.
Well, speaking of original songs, Amber, you're a songwriter, and your songs have become a real hallmark of the Amber Ruffin Show. How do you decide, first of all, if something's going to be a sketch or a song? If there's a topic, what causes you to decide this is going to be a good song?
I write songs when I feel like singing a song.
Okay.
No, but I don't know. I like to write songs in order to feel embarrassed. I think it's a little embarrassing to sing and dance. It's embarrassing. And if you're me and you're not a singer or dancer, it feels great. I think, to me, a great place to be in comedy is to when you feel just a little bit embarrassed. That's all. It's so beautiful. So I love to be fucking singing and farting. Sorry, baby. Farting, singing and dancing. It's my absolute favorite. So like when something happens, I ingest it and I go, what is the most embarrassing way we could be dealing with it? And when it's a song, then I write a song about it.
Well, so there's so many incredible songs that are on Spotify, by the way. White Supremacist Facing Consequences Fills Me with Joy. The Uterus song, Columbus Rap. Do you have a current favorite?
My current favorite, well, White Supremacist Facing Consequences Fills Me with Joy is my absolute favorite. Second favorite is Bore Me Daddy, which is a Mein Lieber Herr, sorry, 5 people know what that is. Like a, Fosse type of song. But then this week's song is, I can ruin it here. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Who cares? This week's song is Lady, I Don't Work Here. Fun little song about how people be stopping me at Target and Best Buy. I don't work at Best Buy. I don't know anything about a computer. How could you possibly be thinking, this lady can tell me about surround sound? I can't help you. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite of her songs, Seth?
Well, I will say we've done it a few times on our show, like the New Planets.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So-
I want to go back in time. New Planets might be my favorite thing.
So it was 4 new planets. This is an actual story as well. And so we had them come out, and it was basically like an instructional type children's song. And we had 4 writers all dressed in like colorful planets.
Yeah.
And it was like, I am unobtainium, I like to do the thing. And then it got to Amber, and she just like hardcore rapped. I don't know where you had it.
It was extremely disgusting.
Extremely graphic
We can't
rap.
even give you an example.
Yeah.
They're just like horribly graphic. And then anytime there were 4 of anything in the news, we would just do the bit again. So there was 4 new elements, and then there was 4 new animals at one point. And so the next time when you see there's 4 new something, email me.
So, Seth, we have to talk about the late night segment that has taken America by storm. It was even nominated for an Emmy this year for Outstanding Short Form Comedy Drama or Variety Series. Of course, I'm talking about Corrections.
Yeah. Thank you. Jackal's in the house. I love it.
So, talk about how this started and how it's evolved over, I believe, a year and a half.
Yeah, so it started with me saying Legos on the show. And there's the people who care about this are monsters. And but a lot of people on Twitter were like, it's not Legos, it's Lego bricks. You don't pluralize Legos. And so then I kept trying to correct myself in the body of the show. And I kept getting it a little wrong. And they kept getting angrier and angrier. So finally I went to Mike Shoemaker and I said, hey, after everybody clears out on Thursday, I want to do a thing called Corrections, where I'll make a list of all the things I got wrong all week, and and the first one was about 3 minutes. Now they're upwards of almost 20 minutes. But it's become something else. It's evolved into almost a weekly stand-up set about the week of shows we just did. Doing stand-up about your show, but sitting down. And long-running bits that go for weeks. And it's so much fun to do. And it's also, there's nothing on the show I do as independently as Corrections. I try not to let anybody know what I'm doing. It also has that energy of the pandemic shows because it's just the crew. And all I'm trying to do is make them laugh. Yeah. So I'm just trying to surprise them. And it's really a very cathartic way to end the week.
And Jackals.
Yes.
Where did this name come from? Was it just off the top of your head and it
was
stuck?
Off the top of my head, yeah. I basically said everybody in the YouTube comment section is a jackal. And a lot of times when I get mad at the people who do this, they're like, oh my God, we're jackals. They're like so happy. But it was a perfect name for it, and because they do travel in packs, and they are vicious. But now, of course, we're all playing a part, which is the really fun thing. I'm playing a frustrated host. They're playing angry audience, but of course nothing makes them happier than when they can provide me with. It's the most crowdsourced part of our show, and it's really lovely. And I really like it when Amber's in the studio for it, because sometimes they're really bad puns, and Amber cannot stop herself from going, "Oh!"
I love it.
So, Amber, you mentioned this earlier, but we have to discuss a little bit more the season 2 finale when you and your sister Lacey beat El DeBarge in a game called Know Your El DeBarge.
How dare he think he knows more about himself than I do?
And it was such a fun segment to watch because you and Lacey are just absolutely radiating joy. You're just having so much fun. Like, how did this?
My hand. We were walking. I was minding my own business before the show, and then this guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Amber. Hey, how's it going?" Reaches out his hand. I go, "Hey, man, it's nice to meet you." And my knees gave out because I realized it was El DeBarge, and I had to be like, "Whoa, oh my God, I love you so much." And I played it off, but I could have hit the ground. I love him so bad. I love him so bad. And he's also like not the biggest. So I was like, ah. He's like, but it didn't occur to me until late that you could just do whatever you wanted. You know what I want to make El DeBarge sing "White Supremacists Facing Consequences Fills Me with Joy."
Yeah.
And I want him to know that I know more than him about him. It was great. It was the best.
And
so now every fun secret guest we have is just like that.
Well, yeah, you had Babyface, Name That Ooh, another one of your idols. So now who else is on your dream R&B guest list?
Oh, well, we can't say, but, just like the people you think. But it's also folks like from shows that we like when we are my age and race. So like maybe it's like someone from like Living Single. Mm-hmm. Like maybe that's something.
Yeah. Now you think, we've talked about this before, you think Living Singles was inspired by Friends, right? This is one of the most fun refrains, is when Amber just, for some reason, will just start yelling at us all that Living Single inspired Friends.
Oh, inspired Friends. It was better when it wasn't exciting.
She's not wrong. She's definitely not wrong.
I mean, but.
So I want to ask you each about your interview style and how you would describe it. Like, Seth, you've been, people love talking to you. It's just very casual. Like, do you have a sort of a method of how you go about it, or what is your sort of attack?
Well, I will say the biggest difference is just how many more I've done, and you just get so much more comfortable, and part of it is you have to do it to learn it. But I try to listen really well. I think that was one of the skills we are taught as improvisers, is when you have a scene partner, if you're not listening, you aren't going to be able to get the most out of it. And that's the most important thing. And also just clocking that there are 100 different kinds of talk show guests. There are some that really want to script it. There are some that want to play out to the audience. There are some that want to get quiet with you and act like nobody's there. And they all work as long as you can, and as quickly as possible as a host, realize who they want to be. Mm-hmm. And just make room for that, because that makes it more fun for you. If you want to do it the same way every time, it gets boring. But if you kind of take the lead and let them set the tone, it's really nice.
Why didn't you tell me that? I'm over here trying to interview you.
I was, but you were just yelling at me about Living Single.
Living Single is better.
But Amber, you started interviewing guests toward the end of season 2, and now it's a regular part of your show. What do you enjoy about it, and what are the challenges?
It's scary. I don't enjoy it yet. It's scary.
It takes a while.
It takes a minute. I just thought, I talk to people all day. It'll be fine. It's not. It's different. But also, like, it is different because I'm like, okay, so then I'm gonna get this person I like to be very close to me, and then I'm just gonna ask them everything I wanted to know. And that's kind of the vibe of it is, like, so like, I like you and your hair. Do you spend a lot of time on it? It's like a little more like that.
Yeah.
I was weird early on. The ones I was most confident about went the worst when I interviewed like fellow cast members of mine at SNL, and I'd think, I don't have to bone up on this person. This will, we talk all the time. And that's when you realize it is, while it should look like a conversation, you also have to be aware it's a performance of a conversation. Mm-hmm. Not that anything about it is false or inauthentic, but you do have to be a little bit more prepared, because if you were sitting with someone at a bar, you would have an hour and a half to get 7 good minutes. But here you have 7 minutes to get 7 good minutes.
Yeah.
And so you have to be a little bit locked and loaded with stuff.
No.
I like, Amber, that you do the lightning round at the end.
Lightning round, I gotta know.
And it's just, well, one is always the dream girls question, right?
Which dream girl are you gonna be? That's all you need to know about a person. Which dream girl would you choose? And then that should actually be the first question, because then I know who you are.
See, we're learning on the job right here. So I want to hear from each of you about a bit that you've wanted to do but haven't because you're worried it's too weird.
Oh, interesting. I think it's not about weirdness for me. It's, am I ever going to actually sit down and write it? I work, like, most of my day is taken up working on A Closer Look. And so even though I have whimsical ideas, I don't know if I'll ever get to them. But I have an idea where I want Ben Warheit to play the ghost of Mayor LaGuardia. And I want to tell a joke about how LaGuardia is shitty, and I want him to say, "It's not a shitty no more." So I think that would be a fun thing to do. Also, he definitely didn't talk like that, but I do. It's not. I guess, yeah. LaGuardia. It's a really nice now.
Yeah.
Amber, what about you?
I keep trying to write the same sketch, and it's called. It's like we're like, oh, you know what? I really like Star Wars. Oh my God, me too. Who's your favorite captain? I guess. Star Trek. I really like Jean-Luc Picard. And then it's like thunder, and you go, really? My favorite is, whatever the black lady's name is. And then you cut to someone dressed like a Gandalf, and he's like, I'm the gatekeeper. And it's just like the gatekeeper, but for like the regular term for gatekeeper nowadays, where it's like, you don't like D&D as much as I do. Like that. Not gonna work, but I will rewrite it till the day that I die. Right. But famously, we did not famously at all, famously in between these two people, we did a show in DC when Late Night Seth went and did shows from DC, and like we didn't plan any bits except for one, and the one bit was me dressed as Obama.
Oh yeah.
Being like
Fun Obama.
Fun Obama and bombed so hard.
We call it Fun Obama.
And it's like me propped up exactly like Barack Obama and being like, I'm just chilling now. I'm Fun Obama. And I, thinking back, like, what were we thinking?
What were we thinking? Yeah.
It was so stupid.
It was also really funny because we've traveled with our show exactly once. We took it to DC. We played this beautiful Warner Theater. It was gorgeous. And then this giant stage, we made it look exactly like our set. So that unless it cut wide, you had no idea. No. And also weirdly, it was like 10 times, or maybe like 8 times the size of our normal audience. And yet somehow, because it was so cavernous, things sounded like they were going worse.
Yeah.
And so it was, when it was over, I think we all thought, I don't know if we're the kind of show that travels well.
No, it wasn't great.
Well, one bit that is weird, but it did make it on the air. Best case scenario, worst case scenario, and one with bees.
Yes.
That's my favorite.
It was really good.
My question is, like, why did you have the weird accent for the bee part?
I don't know. And we don't really rehearse stuff anymore. So we have this, again, incredibly specific writer, Jermaine Afonso.
Jermaine, yeah.
Used to write for The Onion, and he wrote this sketch called Best Case Scenario, Worst Case Scenario, One with Bees. And so it'd be like, war in Ukraine, the best case scenario, they sit down to the peace talks, and, Russia withdraws its troops. Worst case scenario, cornered Vladimir Putin threatens to use nuclear weapons. One with bees. The bees have arrived. And now mankind does not know how to deal with them. For with each bee that dies, 10 more remain. And then it just kept doing that, and then it just became about the bee story. But it was really fun to do, and it's nice because, again, we're aware that we have this late night franchise that, we're following Letterman and Conan and Jimmy, all of whom used it to be inventive in different ways, and there are times where we do that. A piece like that feels like a throwback to an older era, and I think our audience who watches our show appreciate every time they can hear that echo back to the ones that inspired us.
Right. So, Amber, you have a very specific style. You've always got the fabulous neckties. People make fan art of your neckties. Tell us how you developed this, your late night style.
When we found out that I was going to do a show, Eric Justian, our wardrobe guy, was like, how do you want to dress? And I said, I want to dress just like those white men. like a girl. He said, well, but how? I said, I want to look like Kurt Hummel from Glee.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to look like, someone once tweeted, you look like a gay wedding cake topper. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Exactly it. Yeah, but I was like, I want to look as fancy as I can look while still being able to hop around.
Yeah.
Amber had more fan art 5 minutes into her first show than I ever had. Like, she started posting fan art, and I was like, no, has my fan art been sent here as well? Sending my assist, Chelsea, will you go down to the NBC mailroom and find out if there's what I'm assuming will be multiple bags of fan art? She's calling the graphics department. Can you mock up fake?
Well, and Seth, when you first launched the show, you had the suit and tie, very formal, and then, went casual during the pandemic, which makes sense, but you never went back.
Yeah.
Was there any thought of, like, going back to
Well, Eric also works for our show, and when I came back, he's like, with Amber, I can't. He's like, you can't do a suit. No, there wasn't really a thought. I mean, first, when there was no audience, it seemed silly to dress up for no audience. And then the reality was, I don't know, it was holding on to what the show had become. And I sort of get asked every now and then, we do an audience Q&A and people ask, and I think that, our show's on at 12:35 on weeknights. And I just don't believe that at 12:35 on a Tuesday, anyone who's watching me is in a fucking suit. And it was just a way to lean into what we thought was the show's strength, which was being a little bit more both comfortable and casual. And we do want to be, I think our goal is to be your friend more than sort of your professor. And that is, I think the look of the show leans into that now.
Well, you guys have worked together a long time now. When it comes to comedy, where are you most like-minded and where are you opposites?
Oh, I mean, I think we're pretty like-minded.
Like-minded.
I can't believe you just told me out.
I was like, what's he talking about?
I do like. I think we like sketch structure a great deal.
Yes,
I don't think we like,
boys.
and we like sketch boys. We like beats.
Yes.
We like things that don't go on, like it's not a long walk with a short payoff. I think we like things that feel like rule of threes.
Yes.
We like, we came from a place that, again, we used to do comedy for Dutch people. And there's no harder audience.
It had best be efficient.
Yes. exactly. They're like, we do not have time for the long walk.
Get to the punchline.
So it was, and especially writing for an audience that, even though their English is excellent, it is their second language. And so I think it was like we both write in a very clarity first way.
Which is why, it made comedy a lot easier than it is for other people, because that rule that takes people so long to learn was the first thing you learn when you get to Boom Chicago, is you have to state your case and you have to say, this is the fart store. All the farts are in a jar. If you open the jar, you bought the fart. Like, you have to say the rule of the whole sketch, and then you can have fun
and then they're on
within the
board, and then you can, you can write it. But that thing of like being coy with what the premise is, like, we'll tell you what this sketch is about in a minute, like that. That doesn't work, and it doesn't work on TV either.
No.
I mean, I think that. Certainly at places like SNL, the sketches that work best are the ones that lay out the premise and then let everybody enjoy the beats. So I think that's what we have in common. I don't know what we don't have in common.
I don't know.
I will tell you the thing I'm most jealous of with Amber is how she can charm her way out of jokes that bomb. And like when I tell a joke that bombs, it's game over. Especially in jokes Seth can't tell. Sometimes Amber will put in some real... Again, one of Amber's great strengths is she presents as an eternal optimist and lures you in. You think, this wonderful woman isn't going to tell me an awful thing about the world we live in, and then you get real close and she does. But she can, then she laughs her way out of it. And there are times with jokes Seth can't tell, I'll say, Amber, you can put that in, but it's your funeral. And she's like, I'll be all right. And then what would definitely be my funeral, the audience is like carrying her out on their shoulders.
And speaking of that segment, is that something that developed from doing the show, or is that something that...
that was his authentic pitch. It was exactly...
Joke Seth Can't Tell was a Jenny Hagel pitch. She pitched it because she saw Bays in the hallway and said, she had just started working there, and she was like, I can't wait to get you some more of those lesbian jokes. And then Bays was like, thanks, we cannot use them. And then it occurred to her that Seth can't say a bunch of lesbian jokes.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, and then she came up with the idea for Joke Seth Can't Tell, and the two of us sat down and wrote a bunch of jokes that would be horrible coming from
And they should know, when we say lesbian jokes, it wasn't they were jokes making fun of lesbians. They were jokes about hyper-specific things that are unique to lesbians. And so when I told them it wouldn't, it's almost like, it's not that they wouldn't work because people would be offended. They would just be like, how do you know that? But how did you know that thing?
And what does it mean when it's coming out of your mouth?
Yeah, because it would have been what the truth was. Anytime I told one of those jokes, the audience would be like, who told you that? And the answer was always Jenny, so it's just more fun to have Jenny. And again, talk about a sketch, to go back to just laying out the premise. The premise of Joke Seth Can't Tell is exactly, it is what it always was. It's like, they write these jokes, I can't tell them, they're gonna tell them.
But that is who Seth is, though. Seth is like, let's get the laughs, and wherever they come from is where they come from. And if I say to Seth, this is gonna get a laugh, and he goes, I don't think so. And I say, he goes, well, all right, now you're and that's who he is. And then it just creates this really great place to be and work. Once Seth rewrote something of mine, a joke about using your boyfriend's shampoo. And I was like, I can't imagine such a thing. Shampooing my hair outside of my home where I live at? That's insane. The thought is insane. And he was like, and I talked to him after. I was like, I said it at work. I was shocked. He goes, yeah, what do you think I do with every joke you give me? Okay, yeah. All right.
It's a level of trust.
But
it's nice. Another nice thing about our show is we don't have a ton of turnover. And so we have, a lot of people. Amber's been there from the beginning.
People don't
Dave's
leave.
been there. Yeah, and so,
I ain't leaving.
you got it. We gave you a show and you didn't leave.
After this, I'll be stepping right into the car with Seth. Where are we going?
But the longer you're with the writing staff, the more you trust each other. And then the new people who do come in, sort of look around and realize, oh, okay, no one's out to, I mean, the newest writer we have is Jeff Wright.
Yeah,
and I think Jeff showed up, and he's somebody we found on TikTok, and he's such a talent. And I think that he came from that stand-up world where everybody's out for themselves, and within a week realized, oh, okay, so you're all just pitching to make my stuff better, which is really nice, a nice place to be.
Yeah, it's not normal. Everybody who writes for late night is there's like little groups of everybody. Everybody knows everybody. So we know that what we have is not normal. And that's why I won't nobody leave.
So I believe we have some people with microphones.
Oh, great.
And they're going to sing a song.
Oh my God.
Hi, what's your favorite thing about working together?
I think when there's something to gossip about, for real.
I come in and I say, Seth, this is my sketch. And then we read this sketch and Seth goes, okay, do this and this and this. Thank you. And I go, thank you. And then I walk up and I open the door and then I shut it and I go, have we said everything there is to say? And then that means that it's gossip time.
Yeah.
And then one of us will be like, well, do you know that this? And then
Amber is exactly as much fun to gossip with as she looks. And we've known some of the same people for almost 20 years. So we can talk about New York comedy gossip. We can talk about, Dutch improv gossip. It's good.
Yeah.
It's real good.
Is there a lot of Dutch improv gossip?
Buddy, you wouldn't make it to the end of one story.
As the Dutch say, yeah.
All right, other questions? This gentleman here.
First of all, I just want to thank you both. I mean, I think we've been under a lot of stress the last few years. This night was fantastic. I'm telling you, I have tears down my eyes just from this half an hour.
Yes.
So thank you. Are the rumors about SNL coming to its conclusion true? And if so, would you take over for Warren?
I'll just say to that, I personally don't believe that show exists without Lauren. I just don't see it. And then I think we do a ton of stuff where we laugh. I mean, the fun stuff now is, again, the longer you do our show, the more you can enjoy living outside what you wrote. We had David Letterman on the show in February, and I wore a suit for that. And we did a joke Seth can't tell.
Yeah.
And we had to open up, there was a joke about how I couldn't open a pickle jar, and Jenny had to open it, and she spilled pickle juice all over me. And Amber just started to laugh so hard that I basically just said what she was thinking, which is David Letterman's gonna come out and you're gonna be stinking of pickles. And she just thought, it was so funny to her that I finally put on a suit and I'm covered in pickles.
For your little friend, you stink.
All right, so this gentleman over here.
Hi. Okay, Seth, what was the last thing your kids did that made you just sort of roll on the floor laughing?
Okay.
That's one.
Okay.
2, Amber, what dream girl are you? 3, what jeans are those?
Which jeans? These are Tom Ford jeans.
Oh.
Yeah, and I know they're good jeans. When I did my stand-up special, I tried every single pair of jeans in the world, so I know these are the best on me. So my son Axel was sick this weekend, and he was lying in bed, and he didn't want to eat, and then he said, "Mama, can I have some avocado toast?" And she was like, "Yes, you can." And he goes, "With an egg?" And she's like, "Sure." And he goes, "And salt and pepper and lime?" I'm like, "Oh, you're fine then." You just ordered the full avocado toast. What do you? And it was just so, just like a really sick kid getting very specific.
Cute. Jimmy Early.
I feel like you need to elaborate.
Jimmy Early is the fun part in Dreamgirls, where in the movie, if you saw the guy who's played by Eddie Murphy. Yeah.
Rob, yeah.
Don't you start it!
Although-
he did such a good job.
Yeah. I told, when Eddie Murphy was on my show exactly once, unfortunately via Zoom, I fully believe he got robbed of an Oscar for Nutty Professor, which is, I know that sounds like a joke. It's the most.
Are you being serious?
I'm dead serious. When I watch all those parts, everyone is great. Everybody thinks it's sort of hacky to play all the characters. I'm like, none of you can do one of those that good.
That's right.
He got robbed of an Oscar. There should be a redo Oscar where they just, every year they're like, they walk out, and that's the first award. They're like, here's the one we fucked up on. 1971, we all had our head up our ass, and
More questions? This gentleman right in front.
Two-part for Seth in this case. So I grew up in Northampton, Mass. So I know your area. You're from Bedford, New Hampshire, right? Even though you did the Chicago, Evanstown and all that. But the couple times that you did put on the exaggerated accent of your area, but I think Maine probably has the strongest of anywhere.
Yes, I agree with that.
So distinct and it's so strong. I could understand it, but I know it would not go over well if you were to have. My question is basically, did you have to work at? Did you have much of that accent growing up? Did you have to work at getting rid of it?
I was surrounded by that accent. So by the time I moved to the Northeast, I think I was 11. But I immediately, there were so many people in my town who had thick New England accents. I'm also from the same hometown as Adam Sandler, and my mom and I talk about it a lot because she was a school teacher. I said, do you think all New England kids talk like Adam Sandler, or they learn to talk from Adam Sandler? Because at some point we were teenagers and he was a big deal. Like every single kid in my school was like, yo, bro, what are you talking about, bro? I'm like, I don't know if they all did this before Sandler showed up. So I had it.
I like how you're very, very informed. Like, remind me of like a Bill Maher. You really know the stuff. How much of that are you getting, mining from your own knowledge versus being written for?
So I have to give credit where credit's due to Sal Gentile, who oftentimes is so drilled down at a level that I don't even have. Like, I'm sometimes embarrassed to say when people ask, where do you get your news? Oftentimes the answer is, well, Sal's first draft. So I certainly know all the players and I know what's going on, but Sal has a sort of innate ability to pick out on every day, every news cycle. This is the thing where I think we can both explain it and talk about how it affects things on a larger level. And that's where Sal's background in cable news really pays off, because a closer look works best when you set up a thesis statement, you make an argument, and you have a conclusion. And I think that's what people like about it. Not that it has a length, but that it has an arc. So thank you.
I understand, you guys are comedians and everything, and you guys have writers. Is there ever a joke that's too dark that your writers ever come up to with you guys that you can't put on air?
Yeah. Every time. Yeah. They always write children working to making iPhones like that. Those jokes. Die every time, and I feel like it comes around every couple months.
The other one is they always think, because they get what's called setups. We have like a writer's assistant who'll go through the news and write basically the first half of the jokes. And once a week, a person of note dies, like the person who invented this. And then they always write a joke about what that person invented, but the audience is still thinking someone died. I remember once at a Weekend Update, there was a joke that I think it was the founder of Katz's Deli died at the age of 92. 92? 93. By the way, where were you all that night? Where were you? And then you have one more, sorry.
Yes, last one. Who is your favorite comedians that you like to just kind of listen to in your downtime?
Seth Meyers. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, a lot. It's it's fun when I like watching new specials when they come out, and I just did a charity stand-up night where it was Michael Che and Nick Kroll and Mike Birbiglia, and I'm forgetting somebody, but it's really cool. Hassan Minhaj, and it was great. And again, the longer you do it, the more you know them, and so it makes it even more fun to watch.
I think we have time for one more question.
So compliments to you, Amber. It's always a joy having you in the audience when he does corrections, because your laughter's contagious. So compliments to you. And Seth, how do you go about interviewing your guests? Because I've seen when you interview Kellyanne Conman, and then And then you interviewed that lovely actress this week where she broke out crying.
Yeah, Constance Wu, yeah.
Oh my gosh, she had me crying at home. Like, how do you separate those two emotions?
Well,
and keeping it, clearly you're a professional, but how do you like not cry when she's crying like
I mean, I think at that moment, you just realize it's more important to be empathetic and human than, you don't think about what's good TV as much as what's the right thing to do. What would you do if this was someone you knew better? And then other times, I will say, the contentious interview, while good television, does take too much out of me, and we have made a choice to move away from that. Even though I think that when we've done them in the past, like we've executed on them well and we get good feedback, it just, when it's over, you just feel like you had the wrong person to a dinner party. And I take hosting very seriously in that I want to behave politely, and so it makes it too hard if it's somebody that you feel like maybe wouldn't be polite to you.
Okay, and then lastly, how could you still be friends with Andy Samberg calling Frisbee a rat?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge every day, but I will say he's one of the good ones. Andy Samberg is I've been very lucky to work at places where you get to really know people and you get to, again, it's showbiz, and I think a lot of what you hear about it is true, but also, if you create an environment and you're part of an environment where people care about each other, it's like you went through, school with them, or you went through, you grew up with them. And so he's really a special person, although he has bad taste in dogs. Good taste in rats.
Well, thank you both so much.
Thank you, everybody.